The Maple Leaf big boys wake up for the home opener, beating the Penguins 4-2. We'll recap the game and tell you what we're thankful for when it comes to the Maple Leafs this Thanksgiving season. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. What's going on, Dave? Happy Thanksgiving to all of our fellow Canadian listeners and viewers of the podcast. Hopefully everyone is enjoying their Thanksgiving weekend. Dave, is your family a Sunday or Monday dinner family when it comes to Thanksgiving?
We used to be a Sunday lunch
Mm-hmm.
family, but now we are a Monday lunch.
Interesting. So why the change? Just curious.
When the brother gets married and has
Mhm.
other, you have to work with the schedule, right? With both sides, right?
Makes
So,
sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, my family's always been a Sunday. Yeah, like late lunch, early dinner. It kind of just becomes a mismatch. It's like eat at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that. So we had ours on Sunday, which was quite fantastic. We've always done the ham and turkey too, because my brother doesn't eat turkey, so he wants ham all the time. So we get the combination. It's quite fantastic. But a really nice turkey dinner that I had with the family. It was a good Sunday, and it was a good weekend. Good weekend for the Buds too. Got themselves a nice victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins to kick off their, I guess, 41 game homestand this year, however we want to call that. They won the home opener, which was nice to see. They're now 4-2, or they won 4-2. They're now 2-1 on the year after the first weekend of NHL action. Dave, the Maple Leafs find themselves in first place in the Atlantic Division. How about that?
it's not often you've actually we've seen this, right? Like I'm sure in past years they've been near or at the top for a little bit, but like when you look at 3 games into the season, but I like what I see so far. And you look at also teams that have struggled out of the gate. Florida with a couple of losses, tough one to Buffalo, which that's not a good team to lose to, especially I
No.
think it was 5-2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So no, it's a nice start. Obviously hasn't been perfect. There are some things that need to be worked on, but I mean, again, we talked about how important getting off to a good start is for this team. So if they can, continue to improve and find ways to improve, I think that's probably the most important thing about this. They're off to a half decent start, but there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, good building blocks though, right? Like
Right.
I think that's what we've got to be at least happy about, thankful for, perhaps. And because it's Thanksgiving, we are going to go through 3 things that we're thankful for when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll do that towards the end of the show in about 15-20 minutes or so. But yeah, like you said, we talked about this going into the first game, how it was going to be very important for the Maple Leafs to win some October games here, because traditionally they've gotten off to pretty slow starts to their seasons, right? Like we went over the numbers over the last 5 years. They've won just 19 of 42 games in the month of October, a 19-16-7 record, points percentage of 535. So again, there's still quite a ways to go in the month. We're not ready to, parade like, October Kings. We're not ready to go there yet, but it's good to see that so far they are getting wins and they're beating teams that they should, right? That's what we talked about too.
Yeah.
That was one thing we wanted to see. 2 things early on to know things were different. A, can they beat teams that they should be beating, not play down to their opponent? And also, can they get off to a good start and win some early games? So far, I would say they're doing a decent job at both of those. So why don't we talk about the one that we witnessed the other night? 4-2 win. The Maple Leafs beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in the home opener. What were your takeaways from that one, Dave?
Well, obviously, you get off to a good start in the game. I thought, you know, sure there was maybe some sluggish moments, but I like that once again you're getting, scoring from other people. Yeah, it's not great that you let up the first goal on the power play, but I mean, Letang, that was just an unreal shot by him. But I like the fact that you saw a little bit of chemistry developing with William Nylander and Max Domi.
Hmm.
That 2-on-0, which I don't know how they were gifted that 2-on-0. That was such a weird
Terrible change by Pittsburgh. Terrible change.
often just like I got no stick and just gives up on the play too. So
Yeah.
um yeah, and just don't there was that a play I think before that or earlier in the game where Domi made a Penguins player just fall to the ice and go right into the boards because of a nasty deke that he put on.
Oh, broken ankles. Yeah.
Yeah, just breaking ankles. So it felt like Domi was he had something in this game where he was just finding that confidence again.
He had
After
some juice. Yeah.
yeah, a little timid in the first couple of games. I thought we saw more of the Max Domi that we were expecting to see.
Yeah, we saw some juice there out of Max Domi, and you're right. It's good to see. Like John Tavares didn't play in the game; he ended up sitting out due to an illness, so he wasn't able to go. And Max Domi originally was not slated to be the second line center. Pontus Holmberg started out there, but after the
Yeah.
first period, Berube didn't quite like what he saw, so he was like, "All right, let's switch things up a little bit, move Domi into the middle," and right away they found that chemistry again between Domi and Nylander. Really, really nice play to set up Willie for the Leafs' first goal of the game and Willie's first goal of the year, first of two on the night, and that to me was something that was nice to see just in general. Right, the big boys finally got involved in this game. There was a lot of talk over the first couple how Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, all three of those guys left pointless through the first couple of games. Well, can't say that no more. Nylander with a pair of goals, Marner a goal and an assist. Still waiting on Matthews, though, to get his first of the season, which is strange. Although I was reminded that his first 60 goal year that he had a couple of years ago when he, won MVP and won all the awards, he didn't score a goal in his first three games that season either, and still went on to rip home 60. So he still could very well have a tremendous season. Just because he hasn't found the back of the net yet doesn't mean that he's doomed for the rest of the season. But it was nice to see those guys finally start to produce because the underlying numbers, the analytics suggest that those guys should have scored in Montreal, should have scored in New Jersey. And finally, we saw Nylander get one, got an empty netter, and then Marner, nice little rip off the rush too to beat the goaltender. And so that's was nice to see. One of the takeaways, I suppose, from that game was the big boys finally getting involved offensively. Why don't we take a break and break it down a little bit more? Let's get into the three stars of the game. So we'll do that on the other side. And then we'll get to the three things we're thankful for this Thanksgiving season, Maple Leafs edition. That's all coming up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you won't stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing that you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, and there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked on. That's HIMS.com/locked on for your personalized ED treatments. Hims.com/locked on. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here on the Locked On Leafs show each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, including a little Thanksgiving Monday, a little holiday Monday show for the people. We don't miss out on anything. Maple Leafs coming off a 4-2 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. It was their home opener, which, Dave, what are your thoughts on the opening lineup? Like it sounded like a morgue to me. Now, to be fair, I was not in the building. I was watching on TV,
Mhm.
but from TV, it sounded so dead in there. Didn't hear really much cheering at all.
Yeah, I talked to somebody actually who was at the game. He said it just felt very meh, right? Like just the atmosphere wasn't really there. And look, I've been critical of a lot of things the Leafs have done in terms of game ops. The biggest one for me, and I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast before, but the decision to get rid of Andy Frost as the PA announcer might have
Mhm.
been one of the, I would say, dumbest decisions because I don't think Mike Ross has been bad, but I still think that was that was the biggest mistake that this team made, just because there's nothing that gets, I think, just the soundtrack of my childhood. Every Leafs fan goes nuts when you hear Andy Frost on the mic. And I think, no, I'm not saying Andy Frost is the reason why there's no atmosphere, but like things like that, they move to a different sort of feel in Scotiabank Arena. It's like, we know it's more corporate.
Yes.
Every like 2 seconds, anytime there's a stoppage, it's always about, all right, we're doing this corporate thing, we're doing this sponsored thing. You go to other NHL arenas, it's not. It's like that a little bit, but it's not to the degree that it is with the Leafs. I feel like that always sucks some of that. What should be time to get the crowd going, it takes away from that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Very, very well said. I just, yeah, while watching it, no wonder the Leafs didn't get off to a good start. Is what I'll say, right? Like typically, that place should be like if you're talking in Florida, let's say, like that place is absolutely going buck wild right from opening puck drop, and it gets the juices going, and it gets guys like Kachuk, guys like Barkov, guys like Ekblad and Bennett really jazzed up, gets them going. It's tough for the Leafs to feel that right off the get go because the buzz just isn't there. The atmosphere just is not there. And yes, we do know part of the reason is because it's all corporate, and those suits don't want to get up and clap and cheer and do whatever because someone might see you getting excited. How dare you in business? So we know the answer as to why that is, but it still is frustrating and annoying to
Mhm.
watch. But yeah, it just after watching, the Bell Center absolutely knock it out of the park, for their opening night with their introductions, watching it happen in New Jersey, it's like a lot to be desired for the Maple Leafs, but it's over with. I think it affected the first couple of minutes of the game. Leafs were not really into it, but they eventually got their feet underneath them and ended up winning the game anyway. So 4-2 was the final. Let's get to the three stars, the three players that made it happen. Dave, give me your first star of the game.
Well, I'm gonna take a page out of the Mike DiStefano cheat book, and I'm gonna give it to more than one person. And I'm gonna go with William Nylander and Max Domi. Like, you
Oh,
can't
okay.
just do one because it was a tag team effort in this game for the two of
Hmm.
them.
Yeah,
Uh, we were always talking about pairings. In my opinion, right now, I don't think it's a Tavares Nylander pairing anymore. I think it's gonna be a Domi Nylander pairing going forward. It looked like it was gonna be that way in the preseason. I'd like to see them give it a run with these two together and put Tavares in that 3C slot. I think this is what this team needs going forward.
I completely agree. I really do completely agree, and it's something that I wanted to see. I think at the beginning of the year when we put together our
Yep.
predictions, I'm pretty sure that's how I had it was Matthews, Domi, and Tavares. We'll see if they end up doing that, but certainly it's got to feel good seeing Domi and Nylander have that chemistry right off the hop, right? And it allows you to do stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing moving forward. But I definitely liked it once that switch happened and we got offense out of it too. I want to give some love to the top line. I'm cheating also. Just want to give some love to the top line there, right? Matthew Knies was exceptional. I thought Knies had a really, really good game. Just happened to be Johnny on the spot a couple of times. Had a couple of really good opportunities. Scored a goal, obviously. But you look at like the underlying numbers for that top group when on the ice at 5-on-5, they had a 98% expected goals for. They had a 9-0 shot share 9-0. They didn't allow a single shot on goal when those two were out on the ice. They spent the entire time in the offensive end, 7 scoring chances. They obviously scored a couple of goals. Marner with a goal, Knies with a goal. And one of the more important I guess, impressive parts of that is you look at their zone starts, only 20% ozone starts. Like they started, a majority of their shifts in the defensive end. Matthews doing a good job winning the faceoffs. He was 60%, I think, in the faceoff dot. And then they were able to quickly transition up the ice. Why? Because they've got guys now on every line that can bring the puck up the ice and can break the puck out with a good first pass. So I just want to give some love to the top line there. Still waiting for Matthews to come through. He did have 8 shots on net, had 4 individual high danger chances in that game. Also, it's gonna come. It's gonna come. But yeah, that top line very, very nice to see what they were able to do in that game.
Yeah, I have my second starter to Matthew Knies because I thought what he was able to do in this game opened up a lot for Marner and for Matthews. Because look,
Mhm.
we talk teams always are like, if we can, take care of Matthews, well, then we'll have to contend with Mitch Marner beating us. Yeah, if we could find a way to also look after Marner, who's the third guy going to be, right? I think Matthew Knies is realizing he has an opportunity to look. He's he's a beast trying to defend against. He has that opportunity to just crash the net, and he'll get his opportunity. That's what he did in this game, right? You go to the net, good things happen, and so I really like that. What how he complements Marner and
Yep.
Matthews in
Yep.
a lot of ways. So, yeah, Matthews hasn't scored, but it does open up for Marner and for Nyes to get some opportunities. And then what's going to happen? Teams are going to now they can't cheat and go after just Matthews, and eventually that's going to lead to I think him. I mean, he's got his opportunities.
Yeah.
I think it's only going to lead to more chances for him.
It's gonna come. They're gonna start dropping at some point here, probably on Wednesday. I would guess. I'm just gonna guess he's gonna score a goal every game until he does it because it's gonna happen sooner rather than later. Your second star, Dave?
It
Oh,
was
you said Knies.
yeah.
Yeah, you gave it to Knies. I gave it to Nylander too, who we
Mhm.
talked about, and he had a really good game, scored a couple of goals, obviously. One being an empty netter, but still really nice finish on the first one. I just thought in general, played really, really well. I thought that he was one of the more assertive Maple Leafs out there too, which is what you want to see from William Nylander. So definitely going with Bill. Bill as my second star as well. Who's your third star, Dave?
Third star. I was kind of looking around, seeing who other than like offensive players that I could give it to.
Hmm.
So I gave it to Jake McCabe. I thought
He
he had a
lead
pretty
the
good.
he led the Leafs in ice time, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He led them
Yeah.
in ice time, and like when he's on the ice, again, it's helps so much that Chris Tanev could take a lot of the workload for him. He's not being asked to be the always shutdown guy, but I think him and OEL have been such a good pairing together because
Mhm.
McCabe he likes to go out and be free and do the things that he wants to do, and I think OEL like they kind of work off each other very well with that, right? But they're veterans, they know what they need to do, they're very responsible. I think, yeah, McCabe has looked really good to start the year.
The fact that I'm looking at it now, the fact that So the shot share when McCabe was on the ice at 5-on-5 in that game Saturday night was 10-3 in favor of the Maple Leafs when he was on the ice. He didn't have a single offensive zone start in that game. Not a single offensive zone start, and still somehow was able to come out +7 in shot share against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ended up with a 76% expected goal for rating. Like really solid night from the pairing of McCabe and OEL for sure. I had Jake McCabe as my third star also, so that we're both kind of on the same wavelength for
Mhm.
that one. I said give it to the pairing, but Jake McCabe to me was the best, one of the better players out there on the ice. And you're right. It's actually really good that he's properly slotted now, not necessarily as the number one shutdown option, but he could be a complementary shutdown option. The Maple Leafs now have two defensive pairings who they trust and believe that can get it done. And so far so good for that grouping. That might be a little look into what we're gonna get into on the other side, Dave. Because coming up, we're gonna talk about three things we're thankful for when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get into all of that and more. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NHL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's number one sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you can place your bet. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues with Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti, as we do each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. You can find this podcast wherever you find a podcast and up on YouTube as well. Just search up Locked On Leafs, hit subscribe, and we'll be forever thankful to you. And it is Thanksgiving Monday for all of those who celebrate here in Canada. So happy Thanksgiving to all y'all. Hopefully, you guys are either indulging in some nice turkey dinners later today, or perhaps you had yours on the Sunday. But Dave and I thought it'd be fun to do a little festive Thanksgiving themed kind of a little bit, I guess we could call it. So we're gonna do three things we're thankful for, Maple Leafs edition. Dave, what's the first thing that you are thankful for when it comes to the Buds?
Thankful for a defense that I can be proud of and I can trust.
A competent defensive group. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk that we would appreciate that so much, huh?
Yeah, it's only been how many years we've been asking for some sort of improvement on the blue line. Adding really, you're adding two, in Tanev and OEL as signings. Okay, you've got Connor Timmins, but he's been here this whole entire time. And eventually Hakanpää, like we haven't even factored in Hakanpää to all this.
Right?
Like this is the I think when you look at people who don't like the Leafs' chances in the playoffs in the past few years, why they haven't liked the Leafs, this is I think the reason. They don't have that blue line that's been tough to play against. And
Mhm.
we're starting to see the value in having that blue line right now. So very thankful that we finally had an opportunity to see this team put some focus on the blue line in the right way.
Yeah, and it's just it's slotted guys correctly. You know what I mean? Like we talked about in the first segment, we're bringing in Chris Tanev and allowing Tanev and Riley to kind of take on some tougher matchups. Allows McCabe and OEL to take on more of a secondary matchup role, and that makes things easier for McCabe, who's maybe miscast as a like true number one shutdown defenseman. So it allows his job to be a little easier. And then Simon Benoit, who last year was on that top shutdown pair, now he's on the third pair, taking on, third, fourth liners instead of first and second liners. So it just slots everyone correctly too when you've got the right amount of guys, and you've got a true number one in Chris Tanev. And I think what also is impressive about this group is not just the way that they can defend and kill plays and block shots and be hard nosed, push guys around in front of the net. I think what's honestly been one of the more impressive things that Leaf fans have figured out over the first 3 games is how much better this defensive group is at moving the puck, of getting, transitioning the puck up ice from the defensive end out of trouble and transitioning up and allowing, the talented forward group to make plays. Like that's something too that is just great to see, whether it's Chris Tanev, who's been able to kill some plays, who's been able to just grab a puck and quickly fire it up ice, right? Whether it's OEL, who can do that, defensively as well, and Connor Timmins can skate well and move the puck up the ice. So there's a guy on each line who could do that. There's a guy on each line who's defensively responsible, hard nosed, is tough, is physical, can hit, can block shots. They've just got a good blend of guys right now, and it's just a competent, complementary defensive group. And I think it's great that the Maple Leafs have been able to construct this. And early returns suggest that it's working. It is working. It's only 3 games. It's only 3 games, and they haven't necessarily played any world beaters. Well, the Devils actually a really good team, and they did really well against New Jersey. But we'll see. We'll see going forward. But so far, so good. The second thing that Dave and I are thankful for when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, we get to watch superstars play on a nightly basis. And I think, some people take it for granted, right? Some Leaf fans take this club and this squad for granted. There's as much flack as people like to give Mitch Marner, there's a lot of fan bases that wish they had a Mitch Marner. And we not only have a Marner, but there's also a Matthews, a Nylander, and then you get to Mitch Marner. And then there's also John Tavares, who's been here forever, and a Morgan Riley, who's a super fun player to watch. Like, there are numerous players that are a lot of fun to watch here. And Matthews clearly being the head of the snake, right? Guy scored 69 goals a year ago. 69 goals. Like, the fact that we get to watch these guys play on a nightly basis, cheer them on, and root for them to score for the Maple Leafs and try and succeed and win a championship here. There's a lot of fan bases that don't get to see that aren't privileged enough to have the talent that the Maple Leafs have amassed. They haven't quite yet been able to find it in the playoffs, obviously, and get it done. But in terms of the watchability, the entertainment factor, on at least through the regular season, it sure as hell has been there for the Maple Leafs for many years here. So that's one thing that I think we overlook but should be thankful for.
Oh, we should definitely be thankful for it because you look at back at recent memory of for the Leafs, maybe even let's say from like what since Sundin left,
Dude,
how many
Bozak, JVR, Tyler, like
yeah, Bill Kessel, good player
Kessel
but
and
not a star.
Joffrey Lupul, like these guys were the stars of the team.
Yeah,
Like the stars of the group.
like I think at times yes, we'd like to see these star players come and bring that star potential in the playoffs. I get that, but you see what the Leafs have had in the past versus what they have now. You should be pretty thankful that you have players like this.
Yeah.
And with the right, I think with the right coaching that I think they're getting right now, they can unlock it. It takes time for I think a new coaching staff to really gauge how players are. Right, training camp, you see certain things. Preseason, tough to really gauge a star's performance during preseason. But as the season goes along, coaching staffs figure out what makes players tick, what makes them, you know, thrive, and what makes them, not reach their potential. So I think, yeah, with time, I think we're gonna have a better appreciation for these guys.
I'm gonna quickly try and pull up what the Maple Leafs team looked like a decade ago, just to put it into perspective. And specifically the blue line. Like, we just talked about how, skilled the blue line is right now and being able to watch those guys play. Like, do you remember when Ron Hainsey and Matt Hunwick were part of like the top 4 on this blue line?
Oh God,
Matt Hunwick,
shivers, man.
Roman Polak was like a staple on this blue line for many years and like in the top 6.
Yeah,
Like,
Stefan
that's how
Robida.
far. Yeah, like, that's how far we've come around. So the 2014-15 season, I'm taking a look at, like, what this group looked like. And in terms of games. Like we had, Morgan Riley, Jake Gardner, Dion Phaneuf. Those are your top three defensemen. And then you get down, it's Roman Polak, Cody Franson, Robida. Corbinian Holzer played 34 games that year for the Maple Leafs. We had to watch 34 games of Corbinian Holzer. Like, that's where
Mhm.
things were. Like, Stu Percy played a dozen games. Like, that's how bleak things were back in the day. It's a lot better than that. Phil Kessel was, like, the big goal scorer here in Toronto for many years. I'm looking back 10 years ago, the 14-15 season, literally a decade ago. Kessel was our guy, right? He had 25 goals that year. 20 That's 25 goals, and he was an all-star that season, and he was considered a perennial, big time shooter, goal scoring threat for this team. We now have a 69 goal scorer, Dave. 69 goals. So, like, that's how big of a difference things are right now. There wasn't a single 30 goal scorer on that squad. Not a single one. You had Kessel at 25. JVR actually led the team with 27 that year, and Bozak had 23. Those are rookie numbers compared to what these, the big three are putting up right now. So yeah, we've got to just always kind of remember how bleak things were like 10 years ago and be thankful for the stars we got now.
Yeah, definitely have to be thankful for that.
All right. What's the third thing that we're thankful for, Dave?
Well, we don't have to rely on goalies like Peter Mrazek in net anymore. We have depth in goal.
I don't I don't know if we really do we? Do we have depth in goal?
I think we have depth in goal. I mean, yeah, I know right now we're dealing with a bit of an injury issue right now. Or should we go with we'll go with the other one I wanted to do. You want to go with Berube?
Could go with Berube. It's what you're thankful for. You don't gotta if you're
Okay.
thankful for
I
goalie
will
depth,
say I'm thankful
make the
that
case.
Dennis Hildeby good, Anthony Stolar is good because everyone was complaining about whether the Leafs goaltending was going to be able to hold up. With Joseph Woll out, that hasn't been a concern. I think part of the reason that is Craig Berube and what he is trying to do here is he is trying any concerns about any narratives or anything does not phase this guy. He doesn't add into it. I think it's that culture he is trying to build that the outside noise isn't going to get to this team. You talk about the Leafs were winless in the preseason. He shrugged it off. Like didn't even entertain it. Like I think it's going to be so different with Craig Berube this year because anytime I think the Leafs are going to be in any sort of slump or anything, I don't think he's going to add gasoline to the fire because I think the identity he wants to forge with this team is one that just focuses on what they want and not what the outside is trying to bring up on them.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Like Kurt Berube seems to bring, I don't know, a new hope to the organization, a new hope to the fan base that things can be different, right? Like he seems to be more wanting to play the way that wins in the playoffs, right? So like I think that's something that we gotta like. I guess you could throw Tree Living in there, like almost as a
Yeah.
tag team duo, right? Like Tree Living made the moves that has allowed this team to lengthen the lineup, to lengthen the blue line to get big. So I guess we could just consider like front office and coaching staff as one big kind of thankful because Brandon Pridham, we gotta be thankful for Brandon Pridham, the
Yeah.
capologist, right? The assistant GM who is, hands down the biggest cap guru in the league, got this team to within being $1 within cap compliancy this year. Like it's just outstanding what this guy's able to do, and that just goes to show, him and Tree. And then it just goes down from there right to Berube and then, on to the players. Still early. It's not like we're sitting here saying like this team's gonna win a Stanley Cup and they look awesome. They're the best. Blah, blah. It's early, I get it, but so far the early returns have been nice to see. And it gives us hope. And we gotta be thankful for a renewed hope within the
Yeah.
team.
I'll also say I'm also thankful that Berube recognizes when things are stale and stagnant and is willing to make a change in order to spark it.
Oh, you mean like the power play?
Yeah. we've only been asking for Oliver Ekman-Larsson to try being on the first power play unit since training camp. Took a couple of games, but he finally pulled the trigger on that one.
Yep, yep. So we'll see if that continues or if that was just a one game thing. We'll see going forward. Next game isn't until Wednesday, so a couple of days off until the Maple Leafs are back in action. But we still will be bringing you daily Maple Leafs podcasts. Despite that. But that's gonna do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You could subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.